There is a moment in every leader's life when they realize legacy isn't a chapter you write at the end. Legacy is written in the way you show up, the way you shape people, the way you leave others different than how you found them. Legacy is not a future artifact. It's a present tense transmission. But here's the truth, and I want to offer it with precision. You are leaving a legacy whether you mean to or not. When you're grounded, your legacy is clarity. When you're intentional, your legacy is expansion. When you're present, your legacy is safety. But when you're stressed, your legacy can be urgency. When you're depleted, your legacy can be distance. And when you're bored or misaligned, your legacy can be disengagement. Legacy is not neutral. Legacy is always happening. And in a world where technology can accelerate work but cannot transmit humanity, legacy becomes more important, not less. Welcome back to the Leadership Longevity Podcast. I'm Elizabeth Hughes, and today we're stepping into Survivor Driver 4, Legacy and Freedom, the legacy distortion pattern. Our first driver overwhelms you. Our second driver accelerates you. Our third driver destabilizes you. But Survivor Driver 4 does something different. It disconnects you. It disconnects you from meaning. It disconnects you from continuity. It disconnects you from the imprint you're already making. It disconnects you from the truth that your leadership is already living inside other people. This disconnection is subtle, but it's powerful. Because when the legacy layer fractures, leaders begin to believe, I'll get meaning later. I'll contribute more when things settle down. My real legacy will come at the end. But here's the regenerative truth. When the legacy layer is restored, it expands you. It expands your identity, your time horizon, your relational field, and your sense of freedom. The survival driver disconnects you. The regenerative principle expands you. And myth 11 is where that distinction becomes visible. Inside our leadership longevity ecosystem, this myth sits within Survivor Driver 4, the layer that holds your sense of meaning, continuity, and contribution across time. When this layer is fractured, leaders don't lose capability, they lose connection. Connection to purpose, connection to meaning, connection to the imprint they're already making. This is the disconnection state. But when legacy is restored, leaders expand. Their identity expands beyond the role, their time horizon expands beyond the quarter, and their relational field expands beyond their team. Their freedom also expands beyond their output, and this is the expansion state. Legacy is the only layer where the distortion contracts you, but the healing expands you. The myths of deferred legacy tells you that legacy happens later. Legacy is written at the end, and legacy is a product of achievement. Legacy is a final chapter. Legacy is something you leave behind. But here's the deeper truth. Legacy is not what you leave behind. Legacy is what you leave within. Legacy is not the final chapter. Legacy is the through line. Legacy is not the future artifact. Legacy is a present tense transmission. And here's the part we rarely name. You're leaving a legacy even when you're trying not to. The question is not whether or not you leave one. The question is which one. So here's what this disconnection feels like. You're doing the work, you're leading the team, you're delivering the outcomes, but you feel distant from meaning, distant from contribution, distant from the deeper imprint you want to make. And here's the part that stings. You know you're shaping people, even on the days you're not proud of how you show up. The rushed meeting, the clipped tone, the distracted presence, the moment you were too tired to listen, the moment you were too stretched to care. This is the disconnection state of the legacy layer. But when the layer is restored, when you reconnect to meaning, continuity, and imprint, you expand. Your presence expands, your generosity expands, your emotional state and range expands, your leadership expands. Legacy is the only layer where the fracture disconnects you and the healing expands you. This myth is seductive because legacy feels like a future milestone, a final chapter, a moment of recognition, a summation of your work, a product of longevity. And organizations reinforce it. We celebrate your legacy at the end. Your legacy will be clear when you retire. Your legacy will be defined by your achievements. Legacy becomes something distant, something later. But here's the quiet truth. Legacy is not later, it is now. And it's happening, whether you're intentional or not. Here's a story I want to tell you, not about one leader, but about three. 3 leaders in 3 different seasons of life, each convinced that they weren't shaping legacy yet, and each already shaping it more than they knew. Our early career leader, the pathmaker, she was young, new to leadership, still finding her voice. She didn't think about legacy. She thought about contribution, but she was already shaping the culture through the way that she asked questions, challenged assumptions, and widened the path for others. And on the days she was overwhelmed, her legacy was hesitation. A room learning to hold back because she was still learning to step forward. This was disconnection, but when she found her voice, her legacy expanded, and so did she. The mid-career leader, the capacity holder, well, she was deep in the thick of it, raising a family, leading a team, carrying the emotional load of people who relied on her, both at home and at work. She didn't think about legacy. She thought about survival. But she was shaping legacy every time she created safety, a steady room, or modeled humanity under pressure. And on the days she was exhausted, her legacy was over-functioning. A team learning to mirror her pace instead of her boundaries. This was a disconnection. But when she reconnected to meaning, her leadership expanded, and so did her legacy. And then finally, the late career leader, the wisdom bearer. She had decades of experience, a lifetime of contribution, and she thought about legacy constantly and worried she hadn't done enough. But her legacy was already alive in the leaders she'd mentored, the practices she'd embedded, and the wisdom she had transmitted. And on the days she felt overlooked, her legacy was withdrawal, a quiet sign that her time had passed before it truly had. This was their disconnection. But when she reconnected to purpose, her presence expanded and her legacy deepened. So the truth they all shared was that legacy was not something you leave behind. Legacy is something you live into. And the moment you reconnect to meaning, continuity, and imprint, you expand. When we step into the science layer of this myth, we talk about the relational imprint, where legacy is transmitted intentionally or not. So we've talked about this a bit. So when we talk about legacy, we often imagine something distant, something that happens later or after or someday. But the science tells us a different story. So legacy is not a future event. It's a daily transmission. People remember how you made them feel, how you shaped their thinking, how you expanded their capacity, and how you held them in difficult moments. And they also remember how you reacted under pressure, how you withdrew when tired, how you rushed when overwhelmed, and how you disconnected when misaligned. This is the disconnection state, the state leaders slip into when they're stretched, depleted, or overfunctioning. And here's the part that matters. Your imprint doesn't pause when you're disconnected. It simply shifts. This is echoed in the Michelangelo phenomenon. a body of research showing that people around us are constantly shaping us through their presence and their patterns and their emotional signals that they send. Your imprint is always active and it's always shaping the people around you. It is always leaving a residue, light or shadow. But when you reconnect to meaning, when you return to presence, intention, and alignment, your imprint expands. It becomes steadier, it becomes deeper, it becomes something people carry with them long after the moment has passed. Legacy is not what you leave behind. Legacy is what you leave in people. Legacy continuity is identity extended through others. So identity is not a fixed internal object. It's relational. It's shaped, reinforced, and reflected through the people around us. So when the legacy fracture layers, when you're disconnected from meaning, from continuity, or from the imprint you're already making, identity contracts, becomes smaller inside yourself, your sense of who you are narrows, your emotional range tightens, your time horizon shortens. This is not physiological or psychological. This is not psychological weakness. It's nature's response to disconnection. But when the legacy layer is restored, when you reconnect to meaning, to contribution, to the people who hold you, identity expands. So you become more spacious inside yourself. Your sense of self becomes more coherent and your emotional state widens. Your time horizon lengthens. Legacy, in this sense, is identity carried forward by others. Your light and your shadow, your presence and your patterns, your wisdom and your ways of being. It is the continuity of you through the people you've shaped. So then if we talk about technology in this space, AI as a contrast, where technology accelerates work, not legacy. So AI can accelerate output, it can optimize workflows, it can generate content, it can reduce the cognitive load, it can make work faster, smoother, more efficient. But here's what it cannot do. AI cannot transmit meaning, memory, identity, imprint, relational intelligence, emotional resonance, shadow patterns, unconscious influence, because these are human transmissions. They are relational, embodied, and emotional. They live in nervous systems, not algorithms. So they're shaped through co-regulation, not computation. AI accelerates the work, but legacy is what remains when the work is done. Legacy is continuity, legacy is transmission, and legacy is the emotional and relational residue you leave in the people around you, and that is something only humans create. So, legacy isn't something you leave behind, legacy is something you live. And here's the part that matters. When the legacy layer fractures, you disconnect. When the legacy layer is restored, you expand. Legacy is the only layer where the distortion contracts you, but the healing expands you. Legacy is not the end of your leadership. It is not the expansion of it. It is not written in the final chapter. It's written in every chapter. It is not a product of achievement. It is a product of presence. And the presence includes your clarity, your steadiness, your humanity, your shadow, your truth. AI and technology can accelerate the work, but only you can transmit legacy. The light and the shadow, because legacy is human. Legacy is relational. Legacy is lived. So this week for your tiny experiment, choose one interaction and treat it as legacy. Not later, now. Notice what shifts when you lead, as if your imprint, your light and your shadow is already being carried forward. And then take time to consider, what part of my legacy am I already transmitting? And what part am I transmitting without meaning to? For your ecosystem practice then, Once this week, ask, what imprint did I leave this week, intentionally and unintentionally? And then ask, what imprint do I want to leave this week? This is how leaders build legacy, not through achievement, but through awareness. A legacy is not later. Legacy is now, and it's happening whether you are intentional or not. Releasing the myth of deferred legacy feels like stepping into a truth you've always known but rarely named. It's the moment you realize your leadership is already living inside the people you've shaped, in the ways you've intended and the ways you didn't. It feels expansive, grounded, and deeply human. Legacy isn't something you leave behind. Legacy is something you live into. So if myth 11 is a myth of legacy, myth 12 is the myth of freedom, the belief that freedom comes when the work is done, rather than when the identity is integrated. Because once you understand that legacy is now, not later, you begin to see something else with clarity. Freedom isn't the absence of responsibility. Freedom is the presence of alignment. In our next episode, we explore the myth of luck, the belief that longevity is accidental, when in truth, longevity is designed. I'll meet you there.